Hello, Stanton.
All right, how's it going, man? How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good to hear. I was with George Koyas this morning, and we were talking about you.
Excellent, man. I love George.
Yeah, he really loves you, and he has you in his heart. You know.
I love George. He's such a great dude.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Woodiments vidcast. It's a great pleasure and honor. You are a man that literally needs no introduction. I really admire the enormous passion you have for drumming and music. And I must say, I attended a masterclass you did in Athens some years ago, and I was struck by your passion and your positive energy. I want to ask you, how do you get so motivated to do all these wonderful things you do? I mean, books, DVDs, touring, online schools, seminars, clinics all around the world. I mean, how do you do it?
Well, I mean, it starts with loving what I do, right? So I love playing the drums, but I also love the camaraderie and the community and the brotherhood and sisterhood and that we have in the drumming world, you know. So I feel like I love the learning process. I love learning more about drums, drumming, and music. And then when I feel like I really find a gem of knowledge, I just want to share it with people. So, you know, I know how challenging it is to continue to develop and get better at this instrument and at music. And so when I find little nuggets that like, oh, this really helped connect the dots for me, or this was a light bulb moment for me, it excites me in that moment. But then I'm excited to share it with people and let people know and hopefully help them on their journey to become a better drummer and musician as well.
Yeah, that was really obvious. I mean, when I saw you in Athens, all your energy, I took it all in, and I got really inspired. So thank you very much for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you were born and raised in New Orleans, an area with a very rich music culture and heritage. So I wanted to ask you, how defining to a drummer is the place he grows up? And having said that, can someone from another part of the world really master the music of another country? I mean, for example, in my DNA, I have traditional Greek music. You have New Orleans. Can I really achieve playing second line drumming like a native, like Stanton Moore, for example, or vice versa? Is this possible?
So that's a great question. And I feel like the big picture is eventually you can, but I do think that it's important to immerse yourself in the place and the culture and the people. So I've heard other drummers immerse themselves in this culture in New Orleans and eventually wind up sounding like they're from here, you know? I mean, a great case of that is Jamison Ross, right? I mean, Jamison Ross is an amazing drummer and singer, and he's originally from Florida. I mean, you wouldn't know that when you listen to him, you know? So he's a great example of if you really immerse yourself, and then now he lives here, right? So, but he's also made a point to immerse himself in the city and the culture and to surround himself with knowledge and people who are part of this culture. So to learn it from another place and not immerse yourself would be a challenge, I think. But if you come here with open ears, open arms, and an open heart, then it is eventually possible.
Yeah, super. Now let's talk about education and the educational tools that drummers have nowadays, numerically speaking at least, seem overwhelming. Online drum schools, thousands of instructional videos, YouTube, books, DVDs, man, you name it. Do we really need so much information flow? I mean, how has the learning process changed in relation to 30 or 40 years ago, or to the time you were beginning to play?
That's a great question. And I think, you know, it's great that so many people want to share what they know. That's awesome. So there is an overwhelming amount of drumming information out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the same thing is true today as it was when I was coming up. And this is the thing that I hope people will take away from this, is what I hope that people do is they let their heart lead them in the direction they want to go, which is what happened for me. I grew up in the suburbs of New Orleans, and then I started realizing, wait a minute, the music that moves me is music from New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Drummers like Zigaboo Modelis, Herlin Riley, Shannon Powell, Johnny Vodakovich. And I decided, well, I could go away for college and I could go away to school, but no, really, I want to stay here in New Orleans and absorb all this. And I want to be a New Orleans funk, jazz drummer, whatever you want to call it, but I want to be in that number with Herlin, Shannon, Johnny V, Russell Baptiste, Zigaboo Modelis. And so I decided I'm going to study these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to block all this out. And that was the decision I made based off of what moved me emotionally. So now, yes, there's an overwhelming amount of information, but what I suggest people to do is what moves you here, right?
Yeah,
so if
I
what
agree.
moves you here is double bass drum death metal, well then don't come to me, go to George Colias,
Yeah.
right? That's your dude. Like, bam. So let your heart lead you, like whatever it is. If you want to swing out and go in that direction, then find your teacher, find your guide who's going to show you that in the most real way, right? Mm-hmm. For me, funk, New Orleans, all these things, getting creative with stickings and rudimental stuff. If that's what you want to learn, I'm your guy.
Yeah. And
if you want to study with somebody who's played on a lot of records and has done a lot of tours and played with a lot of the icons of funk, Leo Nocentelli, George Porter Jr., Maceo Parker. I mean, I have toured with all of these great musicians.
Wow.
So if that's what you want to learn, I'm your guy.
Yeah, I know that you are the guy, and you have launched your online academy in 2017, if I'm correct. So can you tell us a little about it, and what is the feedback you had from drummers so far?
Yeah, so the feedback I'm getting is people are loving the material, and I'm growing the material all the time. So what I started off with was things that people have been asking me about for years. So things like my buzz rolls and certain grooves I played or certain fills that I play. So I started off with all that, and now I'm starting to put together content that is more addressed to what drummers need to know in gigging and working situations, right? So I created a shuffle course, right, on how I developed my shuffle, and not just my shuffle, but the triplet shuffle, the halftime shuffle, the heavy shuffle. I played on a record with Corrosion of Conformity because I knew how to play a heavy shuffle and groove. And so I'm starting to present more and more material that way for drummers, so that, oh, you have gigs? Well, then here's what you need to know. Things like how to make it's simple as you need to know a bossa nova, you need to know a samba, you need to know 12/8. It's like, yeah, these things are presented by other people, but if you want to learn how I play these things on gigs and how I started gigging a lot, I had to know all of these things to start gigging a lot. And then once you start gigging a lot, you figure, oh, I want to head in this direction, or I want to head in this direction. So that's what my academy is really about, and really is really focused on is, do you want to play music with people? Well, then here's how you do it. And here's the information that's going to get you from this level to this level and get you playing and working with more people. And that's what I feel like I have to offer to people, is real world experience given to drummers, directly to drummers, so that they can improve and start playing more with more people.
Yeah, and I think that this is very important, because I have the feeling now that maybe drumming for some people, for a great amount of drummers, is becoming more and more technical and less playing with people. I don't know if you share this opinion or not. I mean, it's becoming a lot of an isolated thing, like a sport drumming or whatever. Do you see this phenomenon?
I see this, yeah, and that's cool. If that's what people want to do, then that's great. And if they can make a living at that, then more power to them. But I know a lot of drummers who are still trying to make a living playing gigs. And that is still a way to make a living, is actually playing gigs with people and playing sessions. And if you want to do that, then there are certain things that you need to know, like shuffles, 12/8, funk grooves, all these things that I'm offering. And I feel like all these things that people are presenting online, those are all great, and that's all really cool, and there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. But if you actually want to play with people, there's a certain skill set that you need to have. And that's what I'm focused on presenting to people.
Yeah, and you mentioned about someone being professional about it and being professional drummer. So I want to ask you, how hard, professionally and financially speaking, is it in our times for someone to dedicate his life to drumming and become a session drummer or a band drummer or an educator? For example, here in Greece, I know a lot of players that are really great at what they do, but they struggle to support themselves and their families through the life of a drummer. So are we drummers maybe too many now, or has the music industry shifted so much?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so ask me that last part of the question again, or just the last sentence.
Are we drummers maybe too many now as a number, or has the music industry shifted so much?
Too many. That's a great question. That's a great question. And, to be honest with you, all the drummers that I know personally are making a living. And so I don't think that it's too many. I think that it's challenging to figure out how to make a living, but it's not impossible. And I wouldn't say that it's difficult, because we love what we do. So that's the trade-off, is you get to do what you love to do, and yet you've got to work for it, and the drummers who work hard are able to make a living doing it. Are there too many drummers? Well, there are a lot of drummers, but the more drummers that we have, the better the drumming community and the industry is. So keep this in mind too. Not every drummer needs to be a professional working drummer. There's nothing wrong with hobby drummers who play and practice after work and play on the weekends, and that's great. And we need that too, because we need more. The more people we have playing the instrument, the better the industry is. So I wouldn't say that there's too many, but there are a lot. But I know the drummers that I know who are working hard and who are putting in the time and take it seriously. They're making a living. Is it challenging? Yes. I'll be honest. But it's also the thing that we love to do the most in life, you know? So it's just like any profession. It has its challenges, but man, it's like when you're up there playing for people, or for me, one of the reasons I love teaching and filming and writing lessons is because when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, that lesson that you wrote, or hey, that video that you made, that really changed things for me. Like that set off a light bulb, and you know, that makes it to me worth doing, you know?
Yeah, it's very
I mean,
rewarding.
I'll give a shout out to Nikos Anastasiadis,
Yeah,
who
Nikos.
introduced us. You know, he told me that he saw my Take It to the Street book in a music store. I was like, oh, what is this? He picked it up and it changed things for him.
He's obsessed with New Orleans style now.
Oh, and this is the thing, though, that makes me want to keep doing it, is I've asked him in some of my intensives that I've been doing online, I said, so Nikos, for the group, you know, for the other 20 or so people who are in this Zoom right now, can I ask you a question? He said, yeah, sure. I said, has working on the New Orleans second line and funk stuff, has it improved your groove in a way that the musicians that you play with in a heavy situation, has it made your groove deeper, and has it improved your groove in a way that the musicians notice? And he says, oh, F yes, Malaka. and he says, oh, absolutely. So he says, absolutely. It's made my groove more happening. It's improved my groove. It's made my feel better and deeper. And so that right there is why I do this.
Yeah,
it's like,
I understand.
wow, he just, you know, he saw the book on a shelf in Greece and picked it up. So something that I've done has changed his approach to drumming, and it's made the musicians that he plays with notice. And man, I watch videos of him now with his rainbow.
Yeah, the tribute band.
Yeah, with his band. And I'm like, my God, like his pocket is so killing.
Yeah, indeed.
It's like, wow, to think that I had a small part to do with that. It's just like, dude, that means the world to me. That's why I do this, you know? And I'm not just saying that. That keeps me going. That keeps me, you know, I woke up at 5:30 this morning and I worked on a lesson that actually I sent to Nikos to proofread, and he showed me a couple things that I got a little bit incorrect. So, but that keeps me waking up early in the morning, you know? I wake up at in between 5:30 and 6:30 every morning and work on lessons.
Wow.
And then I'm either writing new lessons or editing videos. But that's what keeps me doing it, is because when I make connections like that, it's like, man, that's what it's all about. That's why I'm doing it.
Yep. And now speaking about books, your Groove Alchemy books was picked by Modern Drummer as one of the top 25 instructional drum books of all time. What would you say is the recipe for success for an educational drum book? Is the uniqueness of information? Is it the different approach maybe to already established knowledge? Is it the fame of the drummer who writes it? Or is it a combination of them?
I think it's a combination, and since I can speak personally for me on let's talk about Groove Alchemy since you brought it up. What I tried to accomplish with that book was take some of the light bulb moments that I had made in studying funk drumming and share them with people. So it is the connecting of the dots, the making of sense of ideas and concepts, and taking things that the giants of funk had done before me, Jabo, Starks, Clyde Stubblefield, Ziggy Modeliste, taking some of what they had created and showing, okay, this came before what they did, and this might have influenced what they did, and then they came up with this. But now let's take what they did, and now let's try to come up with some new things. And here are some ways to come up with new things. And that's what I tried to convey in that book. So in other books that are important, I think what makes them is important is that they convey an idea that is important to drummers. So whether it's stick control, right? Like stick control stands the test of time because everybody needs to know these not necessarily these stickings, but how to control your sticks. I mean, the rudimental stuff is obviously super important, and then stick control is just as important as all the rudimental stuff. And then it's just one of the books that is so usable in so many different ways, and syncopation too. There's so many different ways to practice it. You know, these, and I'm not trying to put my book in those categories. I'm not saying that. I'm saying those authors, they saw, hey, this needs to be put out there. Drummers can benefit from this. So for me personally, when I start writing a book, I write the book because I'm like, hey, I've got knowledge up here that I think that drummers can benefit from. So I'm not trying to put my books in those categories whatsoever. I have things that I feel like I've put together and I would love to share it. That's all. And so I think when drummers do that and they present the information, and then other drummers can see, oh yeah, this makes sense. This helps me in this realm, right?
Yeah. And now that you mentioned rudimental drumming, I'm really deep in rudimental drumming, and I'm trying, to pass on the art form here in Greece because it's not so well known. And having said that, I saw the videos you made with LSU drumming. It was fantastic. I mean, great. And I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on rudimental drumming? Do you think that drum set players should study at least a bit rudimental drumming? I mean, some basic solos? Because here in Greece, many drummers have it separated. I'm a drum set player. I do not need to learn my rudiments in depth or whatever. What is your opinion on this?
My opinion is that I think that the rudiments and rudimental drumming is, I think, super important. And whether or not you, as a drummer, decide to go down that path or not, let me just name some drummers who have. And those drummers are Steve Gadd.
Yeah, of course.
Billy Joe Jones, Buddy Rich, Elvin Jones. All of these guys, you can hear the rudimental stuff in their playing, but there's also countless stories and things about their development. And Buddy, famously, it's been said that he didn't practice much, but everything he plays can be explained as a rudiment or a variation of a rudiment. It's all very based in rudimental drumming. So whether or not drummers decide to go down that path, everything that is played on the drums can be traced back to a rudiment or a variation of a rudiment. And whether or not you want to study the rudimental stuff and have that in your drumming, it's in there one way or another. So anything that anybody plays, I can tell you, okay, well, I can trace it back to this, and and this is the foundation of it. Whether they're thinking of it as that way or not, I can tell you, I can trace it back to this. Now, some people might feel like they might be more creative if they don't study the rudimental stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's cool. That's valid. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are drummers who are like, hey, there's a foundation here, and I want to understand the foundation, and then I can take and do what I want with the foundation. So I'm not saying that one approach is more valid over the other. For mm-hmm. me, I personally like to know where things are coming from. I like to know the roots of things. If you know the roots and you know where something's coming from, to me, well then you understand it on a deeper level. And you can put me on a plane and send me to Greece and have me get delayed, and I show up late and I don't have any time to warm up and I'm jet lagged, and you throw me on the stage and I feel like I'm still going to be able to play at some level. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because I know my shit backwards and forwards. I know where it came from, I know where it's going, and that's because I can trace it all back. So it is hardwired inside of me, right? Because I've spent a lot of time studying the rudimental stuff. And knock on wood, I don't feel like I have necessarily bad days, right? I have days that are better than others, mm-hmm. but I have a pretty solid foundation, and that's based off of my fundamentals. And my fundamentals are coming from the rudimental stuff, because that's how I was brought up. But some people who don't want to study that stuff, that's cool too. But I hope that you know your stuff backwards and forwards, and that when you're delayed and jet lagged and you're thrown on stage, I hope you can deliver. Yeah. And if you can, then that's great.
All right. So I know that also you have a bachelor's degrees in business, correct?
Well, I have a minor in business. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I don't feel like my minor in business really prepared me very much for what I'm doing. I've always been interested in taking what I know and growing that. And let's be honest. If we're in the music business, being a drummer, you still need to make a living. So whether or not you want to look at it that way, it is a business.
Yeah, and also, sorry to interrupt you, I know that you have been involved in the drum manufacturing business also, being the co-owner of Crescent Cymbals, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So what is your view on drum manufacturers nowadays, and how do you foresee the revolution in the next decades?
Well, that's a great question. And are there too many drummers in the world? I don't personally think so. I think that we need to have more drummers in the world, because that's healthy for our industry, right? Are there too many manufacturers in the world? That's another story entirely. So if there are a lot of manufacturers, right? And that's great. But what are the manufacturers doing to grow the industry, to make sure that there are enough people to consume, enough drummers to consume and buy what it is they're manufacturing? So, you know, if there are manufacturers out there who are educating younger students and they're involved in education for the purpose of growing the industry, and like I said, not every drummer has to be a professional drummer. I mean, if you've got manufacturers and they're manufacturing and also educating and growing areas of the market so that there are younger kids coming up and it's growing the industry and they're buying more stuff, well, then what's wrong with that, right? But
do you see it happen a lot, this? I mean, do you see manufacturers really trying to educate?
That's my point. There are a lot of manufacturers who are making stuff, but are they trying to also grow the industry? Are they trying to grow the amount of drummers who are in the world? And that I'm not so sure about. And how do you grow the number of drummers in the world? Well, sure, the internet, YouTube, TikTok, that might help get drummers interested, right? But also starting a local drum line.
Yeah.
Kids, right? I don't see a lot of manufacturers doing stuff like that.
Especially here in Greece, I know what you mean.
But if doing stuff like that, that can help grow the drumming industry. So I don't see a lot of manufacturers taking it upon themselves to do things like that. That would be exciting to me.
Yeah, and it would inspire people also. I mean, for example, in Switzerland, because you know I'm a lot in rudimental drumming, there are literally thousands of kids playing snare drums. So there is a huge market for snare manufacturers there in this small country, because kids see all the time events with snare drummers, and it keeps growing and growing. So the market is huge, in spite of the fact that it's a very small country, you know. So yeah. I completely agree. People must inspire, and manufacturers must inspire the new generation with things like that, like building, you know, drum lines.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's important. And are there too many manufacturers? That's a great question. Are there not enough manufacturers doing enough to grow the industry? That's what I kind of feel that.
Yeah. So, what are your goals for the future? What would be the next step for Stanton Moore?
Well, we have a whole lot of touring coming up towards the end of this year, and then especially 2022. But what I'm focused on is continuing to write new lessons, and I'm about to start filming a lot of new lessons. So during COVID, I filmed a good bit. I rebuilt my whole online drum academy in 2020. So I'm really focused on creating new lessons for the academy. I'm writing as fast as I can. I'm about to start filming as fast as I can. So I've been building my editing team to start being able to produce more video lessons and content. So that's what I've really been focused on, is getting organized with my team and my production and the academy. So there's a lot of content on the academy already, but I keep having ideas for, oh yeah, but we need to do this. Oh yeah, drummers need to know about this. Oh yeah, you know, if you want to play gigs with people, you need to know not just how to play a 12/8 groove, but how to make it groove, how to make it feel great. And train beats. Like, I'm excited. You know, I wrote a lesson on train beats a while ago. Now I'm going to film on August 31st. I'm filming train beats. The next week I'm filming 12/8. The next week I'm filming bossa nova. The next week I'm filming samba. Like, and you know, in my mind, I'm like, well, there's countless lessons on that, right? Already. Why do I need to do that? But now I'm realizing, well, if somebody's found me as the dude that they like the way that I explain drum stuff, well then let me present you my approach to how I play these things. Even though it's been said before, this is what I went through to learn this. This is how I play it. And I'm not professing to be an expert on samba or bossa nova, but I'm learning, and I do have to play these things sometimes. So this is how I do it when I play it. And this is what I'm working on my own to improve it. So those are the things I have coming up. That's literally, that's what my September looks like, is filming those 4 lessons.
Yeah, I'm really thinking about joining the academy, because right now, to be honest with you, I'm too much into rudimental stuff. You know, fife and drumming, traditional USA fife and drumming has become my main thing. And to be honest, I don't have the time so much to sit on a drum set. And due to the pandemic, I wasn't able to play with my bands too much. So yeah, I need to reinvent myself with a drum set. So I will definitely check out your academy. And I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff to learn there. And I want to thank you so much for taking the time again for this interview. I really enjoyed it. And I really hope to see you in Greece again.
I hope so too, man. I really want to get over there. I was scheduled to come right before COVID started shutting everything down, but I'm hoping to come back over there. And I love Greece. It's like absolutely one of my favorite places that I've ever been. And I love the people. I love the culture. I love the climate, and I cannot wait to get back.
We love to have you. So Stanton, thank you very much again, and hope to see you soon in Greece.
Thank you, my man. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. Take care.
Take care, you too.